The wind howled across the ruined colony like a hungry ghost. Broken metal, burned signs, and empty houses stood silent under the pale light of two moons. John walked alone through the dark road, his coat pulled tight against the cold. His boots crunched on the dusty ground. He was just a simple mechanic, a man trying to survive in a world that had already ended once. The city of Rayan 9 used to be full of people. Now it was only a graveyard of old dreams. John worked repairing drones and machines for food credits. Life was quiet and lonely, too quiet. Every night he walked home from the scrapyard, through the wasteland, listening only to the sound of the wind and his own breathing. But this night was different. As he passed the edge of the desert, his scanner beeped. A faint signal blinked on the small screen. A life form. It was weak, almost gone. His heart skipped a beat. There shouldn't be anyone out there. The patrols had cleared this zone weeks ago. He stopped, looking into the darkness. Maybe it's just a glitch, he muttered. But the beeping grew louder. He followed the signal step by step until he saw something lying in the sand. At first it looked like a piece of metal from a crashed drone. But then it moved. John froze. Slowly he lifted his flashlight and shined it on the figure. It was a woman, or at least she looked like one. Her skin shimmered faintly silver under the light. Her hair, tangled and dusty, glowed softly like moonlight. Her eyes opened for a moment, deep blue glowing from within. John gasped. An alien? Everyone knew aliens were enemies, or at least that's what the army said. But she didn't look dangerous. She looked starving, weak, lost. Her thin fingers trembled as she tried to reach out. Help, she whispered, her voice soft and broken. John looked around. The wind was picking up again. Sand whipped against his face. He knew he shouldn't help her. If the patrols caught him, they would shoot him on sight for hiding a non-human. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw something human. Fear, pain, a plea for life. He sighed. All right. Come on then. He lifted her gently, surprised at how light she was. She winced but didn't resist. John carried her back to his hover truck and wrapped her in his coat. Her skin was cold, ice cold, and faint light flickered beneath it like something alive was moving inside her. Hang in there, he said, starting the engine. I'll get you to my place. The drive home was silent except for the hum of the engine. Every few seconds he looked over at her. She was breathing, but just barely. When the truck hit a bump, she let out a small sound like a frightened animal. John clenched the steering wheel tighter. He didn't know what he was doing. He just knew he couldn't leave her there to die. When they reached his small home, an old workshop at the edge of the ruins, he carried her inside and laid her on a cot. He found a blanket, wrapped her up, and searched his supplies. He had no idea what aliens ate, so he warmed up some soup and hoped it might help. After a while, she stirred. Her eyes opened again, faintly glowing. John held out the bowl. Can you eat this? She looked at him confused, then took a slow sip. Her hands trembled, but she finished half the bowl. Color, or something like it, began to return to her face. What's your name? John asked quietly. She hesitated, then whispered, Lyra. All right, Lyra. I'm John. You're safe here, for now. Her gaze flickered toward the window, where distant red lights moved across the horizon, patrol drones scanning the wasteland. She whispered something in her own language, soft and sad, before her eyes closed again. John sat beside her, unsure what he had just done. He knew this could ruin his life, but as he looked at the strange woman sleeping in his bed, he felt something new, a spark of curiosity, maybe even hope. He leaned back in his chair, exhausted, staring at the ceiling. The storm outside grew louder, shaking the windows. Suddenly, the lights in the room flickered. Tools on the table rattled, and the air hummed faintly. John sat up. Lyra was still asleep, but a faint blue glow pulsed from her body. Slow, steady like a heartbeat. John frowned. What are you? He whispered. The glow faded and everything went silent again. He rubbed his eyes and tried to convince himself it was just his imagination. But later that night, as he dozed off beside the table, something strange happened. Lyra's eyes opened again, bright, clear, and alien. She turned her head and stared at John sleeping beside her. Her pupils shifted into thin glowing rings, scanning him quietly. For a long moment, she just watched him, her expression unreadable. Then softly, she whispered words in her own language. Words that would only later be translated to mean, "He doesn't know it yet, but he has saved more than just me." And with that, she closed her eyes again, as the storm howled through the ruins outside. The morning sun rose weakly through the dusty clouds, painting the ruined colony in shades of gold and gray. John woke with a start, his neck sore from sleeping in the chair beside the cot. For a moment he forgot what had happened the night before, until he saw her, Lyra. She was still there, lying under the blanket, breathing slowly. The silver tone of her skin looked softer in the daylight. The glow was gone, replaced by a quiet stillness. For a second she looked almost human, peaceful, fragile. John stood up and rubbed his eyes. "You're real," he muttered. "I didn't dream this." He went to the small stove and heated some water. As he made tea, he kept glancing at her. He wondered what planet she came from, what kind of war had left her in that wreck, and most of all, why she was here, alone. When he turned back, she was awake. Her blue eyes followed him carefully, studying every move. Her hands clutched the blanket, unsure whether she should be afraid or thankful. "You're safe," John said softly. "No one's gonna hurt you here." She didn't answer at first. Then in a quiet voice she said, "Why? Why what? Why did you help me?" John hesitated. He wasn't sure himself. He shrugged. "Guess I couldn't just leave you out there." She tilted her head as if trying to understand his words. "Humans don't help my kind," she said. "They shoot us." Her voice was gentle, but there was something heavy behind it. Sadness, maybe fear. John felt a chill run down his spine. "I'm not like them," he said. "I don't care what the army says. You were dying. That's all I saw." She looked down at her hands, then nodded slowly. John offered her a cup of water. She took it carefully, her fingers trembling. When their hands touched for a second, a strange spark of warmth passed through him. Not electricity, but something deeper. "What's your name again?" he asked. "Lyra." "Right, I'm John." She repeated it softly. "John." The way she said it made the simple name sound new, almost sacred. For a while, they sat in silence. Then John asked, "Where are you from?" Lyra's eyes darkened. She looked away toward the broken window. "Far," she said finally. "My world is gone. Gone. Humans came, fire, noise, my people fought. Host died, I escaped." Her voice trembled. "They call us invaders, but we never wanted war. We only wanted to live." John didn't know what to say. He'd heard stories from the army. Stories about alien attacks, destruction, invasions. But now, hearing her speak, he wasn't sure what to believe anymore. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. She looked at him again, her eyes glimmering. "You don't have to be sorry. You didn't do it." He nodded, though guilt still twisted in his chest. Hours passed. John gave her some old clothes and a blanket. She tried to stand but stumbled, her legs too weak. John caught her before she fell. Her body felt weightless in his arms. When he helped her to the chair, her eyes met his again, calm but full of questions. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, John sat repairing a broken drone while Lyra watched quietly. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Fixing this old thing," he said with a small smile. "Machines keep me alive." Lyra tilted her head. "You fix broken things?" "Yeah, that's what I do." She gave him a small, almost shy smile. "Then maybe you can fix me too." John laughed softly. "We'll start with food and rest." But as he smiled, something strange happened. The metal tools on the table began to shake. A screwdriver lifted an inch into the air, spinning slowly. John froze. "What the?" Lyra gasped and covered her face with her hands. The tools dropped with a clatter. The air was filled with a faint blue light that faded as quickly as it appeared. John stared at her. "What was that?" Her voice broke as she whispered, "I can't control it. When I remember things, when I feel too much, it happens. Is it some kind of power?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "They gave it to me, humans, in a lab. They wanted to make weapons. I was one of them." John's breath caught. "You mean humans did this to you?" "Yes." Her eyes glowed faintly now, filled with pain. "They called us projects. They changed us, tested us, used us. Then when we escaped, they called us monsters." John clenched his fists. "That's wrong." She looked at him, surprised by his anger. "You believe me?"
"Yeah, I do." For the first time she smiled, a real smile.
"Then maybe I can trust you." Outside, the wind rose again. Distant drones buzzed in the sky, their red lights sweeping across the ruins. Lyra's smile faded. "They're looking for me," she whispered. "If they find me, they'll kill us both." John looked toward the window. "Then we'll make sure they don't." He turned off the lights and sealed the shutters. Lyra watched him, a strange feeling stirring in her chest, something she hadn't felt since her world was destroyed. Hope. As the night deepened, John sat near the door with his old rifle, guarding her while she slept, and in the silence, Lyra whispered softly to herself, "Maybe not all humans are monsters." Night fell quietly over the ruins, but inside John's small workshop, the air was heavy with unspoken truth. Lyra sat by the dim heater, her silver skin glowing faintly in the flickering light. John worked silently at his desk, pretending to fix a drone, though his mind was far from it. He kept stealing glances at her calm face, the way she breathed slowly, almost too still. She didn't belong in this broken human world, yet somehow she made it feel alive again. Finally, John spoke. "You said humans did this to you, made you what you are." How? Lyra hesitated. Her fingers gripped the edge of the blanket. "You really want to know?" "Yes." Her eyes turned distant as if looking through time itself. "They called it Project Ascend. They captured many of my kind. Scientists said they wanted peace, to understand alien life. But they lied. They took our blood, our memories, our light. They wanted to create perfect soldiers, half human, half us." John frowned. "You mean hybrids?" She nodded. "But it failed. The energy inside us is not meant to obey. It burns, it destroys. Many died. I escaped before they could finish me." John's stomach turned. He knew humanity had done dark things during the war, but this was worse. He stared at the cracked floor, guilt heavy in his chest. "I used to think we were fighting monsters," he said quietly. "But maybe we became them." Lyra watched him carefully. "You're not like them. You saved me." Their eyes met, and for a moment silence filled the room, deep, soft, and strange. Then outside, something hummed in the distance. A drone engine. Lyra's body tensed. "They're coming." John grabbed his scanner. On the small screen, a red light blinked fast. "Incoming patrol." He cursed under his breath. "They must have tracked your ship." Without another word, he rushed to the window, sealing it shut. "Stay here. Don't move." Lyra stood. "If they find you with me, I said stay." His voice was firm, but his eyes were gentle. "You're not going anywhere." Moments later, the sound of engines grew louder. John peeked outside and saw 2 drones circling above the ruins. Their red eyes glowed, scanning the area. He reached for his old pulse rifle, the one he swore he'd never use again. Lyra's breathing quickened. The lights flickered around her, reacting to her fear. John turned back. "Hey, look at me." She met his eyes. "Breathe. Don't lose control, okay? You're safe here." Her eyes softened. "You shouldn't risk your life for me." John smiled faintly. Too late. Outside, a sharp beep echoed, and 1 drone locked onto their location. John swore. "Damn it!" He fired through the window. The shot hit the drone's side, sparks flying. The other one moved fast, shooting back. Glass shattered. Lyra stepped forward, her hands glowing bright blue. Energy pulsed from her palms, swirling like wind and lightning. The second drone exploded mid-air, scattering flaming debris across the street. John turned in shock. "How did you—" She fell to her knees, gasping, her glow fading fast. "I can't control it for long." He rushed to her side. "Easy, you did great. Just breathe." She smiled weakly. "You're not afraid of me." He shook his head. "Should I be?" Her lips curved into the smallest smile. "Maybe." They both laughed softly, the tension melting for a moment. But miles away, inside a cold military base, a man in a black uniform stood before a flickering hologram. On the screen was a frozen image of John and Lyra, captured by the drone seconds before it exploded. The man's voice was sharp and cold. "Target confirmed. The hybrid is alive, and she's with a civilian." Another soldier saluted. "Orders, sir?" The commander's eyes narrowed. "Bring them in, alive. The girl is worth more than this whole colony." The hologram faded, leaving only silence. Back in the workshop, John was repairing the broken window, while Lyra rested on the cot. The faint hum of distant engines echoed again, too far to be seen but close enough to feel. "John," she said softly. You shouldn't stay with me. They will come again. He tightened a bolt on the frame and didn't look at her. Then let them. I'm not leaving you. Why? He turned and met her gaze. Because you don't deserve to be hunted. No one does. Something in his voice made her chest ache. Something she hadn't felt in years. Later that night, when the power went out and only the stars lit the sky, Lyra walked quietly to the window. The world outside was still broken, but for the first time she didn't feel alone. Behind her, John slept at the table, his head resting on his arm. She looked at him for a long time, her eyes glowing faintly. You have no idea what you've done, she whispered. They will come for me, and for you. She turned back to the stars, a tear sliding down her silver cheek. But I will not lose you too. Outside, hidden in the darkness, a tiny red light blinked, a small drone camera, recording everything. And far away, the commander smiled. Found you. The night was quiet, too quiet. John felt it first, that strange stillness in the air before a storm, the kind of silence that makes your heart beat louder in your chest. He sat at his workbench fixing a small battery cell while Lyra slept near the heater, her breathing soft and calm. Then, in the distance, a low rumble. The ground trembled faintly. John frowned. That's not thunder. Outside beyond the ruins, lights appeared, red and white, cutting through the darkness. Dozens of them. Drones, vehicles, soldiers. The patrol had found them. John's stomach dropped. No, not now. He ran to Lyra and shook her shoulder gently. Lyra, wake up. They're here. Her eyes opened instantly, glowing faint blue. How many? Too many, he said, grabbing his rifle and a small pack of tools. We have to move, and now. She stood, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. Her expression was calm, but her eyes shimmered with fear. You shouldn't have helped me, John. He smirked, forcing bravery into his voice. Yeah, well, it's a bit late for regrets. They ran outside into the cold night. The wind cut across the empty streets as the sound of engines grew louder. John led her through the back alleys, past the broken walls and collapsed towers. The moonlight reflected off the metal debris, casting long shadows that moved like ghosts. Behind them, mechanical voices echoed through the speakers. Target located. Orders. Capture both alive. John and Lyra ducked behind a ruined truck as a spotlight swept past. The beam missed them by inches. Lyra's hands glowed faintly. She was ready to fight, but John grabbed her wrist. Don't, he whispered. You'll burn yourself out again. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she nodded. They ran again, fast, desperate, hearts pounding. A drone spotted them and fired a plasma shot that tore through the sand beside them. The blast threw them forward. John groaned, covering Lyra with his body as sparks rained down. You okay? He asked, voice shaking. I'm fine, she said, her voice steady. Keep running. They reached the edge of the wasteland where an old research facility stood half buried in sand. The walls were cracked, the roof caved in, but it was shelter. John dragged the heavy door open and they slipped inside. The air inside smelled of rust and dust. Broken screen still flickered faint green lights. Lyra looked around and froze. Her face went pale. I know this place, she whispered. John turned. What do you mean? This was one of their labs. They kept us here. Her voice broke on the last word. John looked around, at the broken cages, the empty glass tanks, the faded symbols on the walls. His stomach twisted. He could almost hear the echoes of screams, the hum of machines that were never meant for healing. He turned toward her. Lyra, I'm sorry. Don't, she said softly. You didn't do this. Outside, the engines grew louder again. They didn't have much time. John pulled out his scanner, checking for exits. There's a maintenance tunnel under the floor, he said. It leads to the canyon. They started moving toward it. But then something flickered on one of the screens, an old hologram activating from a motion trigger. A man appeared in the holographic light, middle-aged, sharp eyes, wearing a lab coat. His voice echoed weakly. If you're seeing this, it means the facility has fallen. John froze. He knew that voice. He'd grown up hearing it every day, Dad. He whispered. Lyra turned sharply. What? The hologram continued, static flickering. My name is Dr. Elias Morgan. We thought we could control their energy, but it was alive. My son, if you ever find this, remember, they are not our enemies. Protect her. She is more human than you'll ever know. The message ended, leaving silence. John's hands trembled. My father? He was part of this. He made you. Lyra stared at him, her eyes wide, full of shock and sorrow. Then you are the son of the man who built my prison. He stepped back. Lyra, I didn't know. I believe you, she said quickly, though her voice shook. But now you understand why they won't stop. You're tied to me by blood and fate. Before he could answer, a loud crash echoed from outside. The main door was blown open. Soldiers stormed in, flashlights sweeping across the room. Move, John shouted. He grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her toward the maintenance tunnel. They slid down the narrow shaft just as bullets tore through the walls. Sparks flew around them. Lyra's hand tightened in his. Her eyes glowed brighter, lighting the tunnel as they crawled through the darkness. Behind them, the soldiers shouted, their voices growing faint. Then silence. When they finally reached the canyon exit, John collapsed, breathing hard. The cold wind hit his face like a slap. Above them, stars stretched across the black sky. Lyra looked back at the direction they came from. They won't stop. They'll hunt us to the ends of this world. John wiped the dust from his face and looked at her with quiet resolve. Oh. Then we'll keep running, until there's nowhere left to run. Lyra met his gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. You're risking everything for me. He smiled, tired but certain. Maybe it's not just for you. In the distance, the ruins of the lab glowed faintly, a reminder of the past neither could escape. But for now, under the cold alien stars they ran together, human and hybrid, hunted but not broken. The sun rose weakly over the canyon, its pale light spilling across broken rocks and dry sand. John and Lyra sat near the edge of an old cargo shelter, both exhausted and bruised. The night's chase had left them barely standing. John stared at his trembling hands. His father's hologram still burned in his mind. The voice, the words, the truth he never wanted. My son, protect her. She is more human than you'll ever know. He looked at Lyra, who sat quietly beside a rusted wall, her silver skin catching the early light. She hadn't said a word since the escape. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes, they were full of something deep, pain mixed with confusion. Finally, John broke the silence. I didn't know. I swear to you, Lyra, I didn't know what my father did. She turned her head slowly. You don't have to swear. I can feel it. Your heart doesn't lie. He blinked. You can feel that? She nodded faintly. Your energy. It's strong, warm, strange. When I'm near you, my body stops hurting, John frowned. That's impossible, she smiled sadly. Everything about me is impossible. For a moment, neither spoke. The canyon wind howled between the rocks, carrying dust and echoes. John looked around at the wrecked machines half buried in sand. This place used to be one of our transport routes, he said. We can rest here for a bit. Then we move before nightfall. Lyra didn't answer. Her eyes were unfocused, staring at nothing. John reached out carefully, touching her arm. Hey, you okay? She flinched, then suddenly gasped. Her entire body tensed, glowing faintly blue. Lyra? John shouted. She pressed her hands to her head, crying out. Images flashed through her mind. Memories not seen for years. White walls, cold lights, screams, human voices yelling commands, needles in her arms. Electricity running through her veins. Her power surged uncontrolled, the ground beneath her vibrating. John grabbed her shoulders. Lyra, focus on me. It's okay. She shook her head violently. No, it's not okay. I see them. I see everything they did. The glow brightened, spreading up her arms. Sparks of blue light danced in the air. Breathe, John said, his voice calm but urgent. You're safe now. No one's hurting you. Her breathing slowed. The glow faded. She collapsed into his chest, trembling like a frightened child. John held her tight, feeling her heartbeat against his. I remember now, she whispered weakly. Your father. He wasn't like the others. He tried to protect us. He wanted peace. But the others betrayed him. John's throat tightened. He's dead now. I thought he died in the war. She looked up at him, her eyes soft. He died trying to stop the project. He was the reason I escaped. John sat back, stunned. The man he had blamed for the war had saved her. After a long silence, Lyra said quietly, They used my blood to make weapons. But something changed inside me. When I met you, I felt it again, that connection. Maybe your father did something. Something that ties us together. John frowned, remembering the message. She is more human than you'll ever know. What are you saying? He asked. I think I was made from both our worlds, she said. Maybe part of me is human. The words hit him like a wave. He looked into her glowing eyes, and for the first time, he didn't see alien or enemy. He saw a person, scared, lonely, and strong. Before he could reply, a loud crack echoed through the canyon. A sniper shot. The rock beside them exploded in dust. Move, John shouted. He pulled her behind the shelter as another shot rang out. They found us again, Lyra gasped. John peeked out. 3 soldiers in armored suits were climbing down the canyon walls, rifles aimed. Stay low, he said, checking his rifle. We can't outrun them this time. Lyra shook her head. No, I won't let them take you. Her hands began to glow again, brighter than before. Energy swirled around her body like blue fire. John shielded his eyes. Lyra, don't. You'll burn out again. But she didn't listen. The air cracked with power. Bolts of energy shot toward the soldiers, throwing them backward in a flash of light. The canyon filled with smoke and dust. When it cleared, the soldiers were gone. Silent, unconscious, or worse. Lyra fell to her knees, panting. Her skin flickered between silver and pale, her strength fading fast. John rushed to her side. Lyra, hey, stay with me. Her hand trembled as she touched his face. Your heart, it keeps me alive, she whispered. When I use my power, it burns me from inside. But when you're near, it doesn't hurt as much. He held her close, voice shaking. Then I'll never leave your side. She smiled weakly, tears glimmering in her eyes. You sound like him. Your father. They stayed like that for a long time. 2 broken souls hiding from a world that wanted them gone. And as the wind howled across the canyon, Lyra closed her eyes and whispered, If I survive this, I'll tell you what they truly made me for. John frowned, confused. What do you mean? But she didn't answer. Her body went still, her breathing slow. She was alive, but barely. John held her tighter, whispering to the empty sky. You're not dying on me. Not after everything. Far away, on a dark command ship, the same commander watched the drone feed with cold eyes. He zoomed in on the image of John holding Lyra. Prepare the hunter units, he said. The hybrid's power is rising. She's becoming unstable. We need her, before she remembers who she truly is. The night sky above the canyon glowed faint blue from Lyra's fading energy. John held her close beside a small fire, trying to keep her warm. Her skin flickered like dying light, and her breathing was shallow. He had wrapped her in his jacket, whispering, Stay with me. Don't you dare give up now. She stirred, her voice soft. John, and the power inside me, it's waking. I can't stop it anymore. He brushed the hair from her face. Then we'll find a way to control it, together. She gave a small, tired smile. You don't understand. It's not meant to be controlled. It's meant to end things, John frowned. End things? What are you saying? Lyra looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly. When they created me, they made me the key. A living weapon that could destroy entire colonies. If I lose control, I'll wipe out everything for miles. His chest tightened. You're not a weapon. You're not what they made you. She shook her head weakly. You say that because you see me as human. But I'm not. I'm the proof that humans and my kind can't exist together. John leaned closer, voice low and firm. No, you're the proof that we can. Before she could answer, a sudden rumble echoed through the canyon. The fire flickered violently. John looked up. Distant lights appeared on the horizon again, dozens of them moving fast. Lyra, they found us. She sat up slowly, her glow returning. Then this is where it ends. John grabbed his rifle, scanning the area. Not if I can help it. Moments later, the sound of engines roared overhead. Dropships descended like dark birds, kicking up clouds of dust. Armored soldiers poured out, surrounding the canyon. The commander's voice boomed from a loudspeaker. Lyra of Vera, you are property of the United Human Dominion. Surrender yourself and the civilian will be spared. John shouted back. You'll have to go through me first. The commander's voice was calm, almost amused. That can be arranged. The ground shook as heavy walkers, giant machines, moved into position. Their weapons aimed straight at them. Lyra stood, the glow around her growing stronger. Her eyes burned like twin stars. John, you need to go, please. He grabbed her hand. Not without you. You don't understand, she said, her voice trembling. If I fight, if I unleash it, I might kill you too. He met her gaze unwavering. Then I'll take that risk. I didn't save you just to watch you die alone. Something broke inside her, not with pain, but with emotion. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. The air around her began to hum and the sand at her feet started to lift, swirling in a ring of light. The soldiers opened fire. John dived behind a rock, returning fire with his rifle. Plasma bolts streaked across the sky. The blast reflected off an invisible barrier around Lyra, energy that pulsed with every beat of her heart. Her hands glowed brighter, spreading waves of light across the canyon. The walkers staggered as their systems shorted out. Soldiers screamed as their weapons melted in their hands. "Lyra, stop!" John shouted. "You'll burn yourself out!" But she didn't stop. Tears streamed down her face as the power poured from her body like lightning. The ground cracked beneath her feet, glowing with alien energy. In the middle of chaos, the commander stepped forward, watching her from behind his helmet. "Impressive," he said coldly. "But your energy will kill you. You were never meant to live this long." Lyra turned her gaze toward him, her voice echoing like thunder. "Maybe, but I was never meant to feel either. And that's what makes me stronger than you." She raised her hands, releasing a final surge of light. The entire canyon exploded with blue fire. John was thrown backward, the world spinning. The noise was deafening. Metal, dust, screams, and light blending into one blinding storm. When he opened his eyes, everything was silent. The army was gone. The machines were melted into glass. Smoke rose from the ground and Lyra was gone too. John stumbled forward, calling her name. "Lyra, Lyra, where are you?" No answer, just wind and ashes. He fell to his knees, heart pounding. Then faintly he saw her, lying near the center of the crater, surrounded by faint light. He ran to her, lifting her into his arms. Her body was cold, her glow dim. Hey, you did it," he whispered. "You stopped them." Her lips moved weakly. "John." "I'm here," he said, choking back tears. Her eyes fluttered open. "It's peaceful now. Can you feel it?" He nodded, tears running down his cheeks. "Yeah, you saved us," she smiled faintly. "No, John, we saved each other." Her hand touched his chest, right over his heart. The faint blue light spread from her palm into him, glowing softly. "My energy. It's part of you now. Promise me you'll live." He held her tight. "Lyra, don't leave me." But before he could finish, her body dissolved into pure light, fading like mist in the morning sun. The glow entered his chest, and then she was gone. The canyon was silent again. Only the wind whispered her name. John fell to the ground, staring at the horizon where the first rays of dawn broke through the smoke. "I'll live," he whispered, "for both of us." And as he said the words, a faint shimmer of blue light flickered across his hands. Her power, still alive inside him, somewhere far above the clouds. The stars seemed to pulse once, or as if answering her promise. A soft wind whispered through the canyon ruins as the first sunlight touched the ground where the battle had ended. The air still smelled of smoke and energy, but the explosions were long gone. The once gray sky now shimmered with faint traces of blue light, like dust from the stars. John slowly opened his eyes. He lay among the rocks, bruised, weak, and covered in ash. The memories of the night flashed in his mind. The battle, the fire, her voice calling his name. And then, nothing. He sat up, his body aching with every movement. The crater stretched before him, silent and still. No soldiers, no machines. Just emptiness, and Lyra was gone. John's chest tightened. He pressed his hand to his heart, where the faint blue light had entered him before she vanished. It pulsed softly beneath his skin like a heartbeat that wasn't his. "She's not gone," he whispered. "She can't be." For days, John wandered the wasteland. He searched the broken camps, the melted metal, the blackened sky. He shouted her name until his voice cracked. But the only answer he got was the sound of wind and shifting sand. When his body could move no more, he collapsed beneath an old transport bridge, staring up at the endless stars. They looked brighter than before, colder, but alive. He thought of her words, "My energy. It's part of you now." John closed his eyes, and for the first time since the battle, he felt it. Warmth spreading through his chest, a gentle hum in the air. Then he heard a whisper soft as a dream. "John." His eyes snapped open. The world around him shimmered. The dust lifted, glowing faintly blue. A shape began to form before him, delicate, bright, and familiar. "Lyra?" he whispered. The figure solidified into her, not flesh and bone but light and air glowing like the stars themselves. She smiled, her eyes the same deep blue he remembered. "It's me," she said softly. John stood, trembling. "You're alive?" "In a way," she said, her voice echoing like distant music. "When I gave you my energy, I didn't die. I changed, I became part of the world." He took a step forward. "I thought I lost you." "You didn't," she said, her light flickering gently. "You carried me with you." He looked down at his hands. The faint blue light still pulsed in his veins. This is you?" She nodded. "My heart inside yours. My life inside yours. That's how I survived." Tears filled his eyes. "Then stay with me. Don't go again." Lyra looked at him lovingly. "I wish I could, but I don't belong here anymore. The energy that once destroyed can now heal. It's rebuilding what was lost. The land, the air, even the stars. It's all changing because of you." John glanced around. The canyon walls glowed faintly. Tiny plants, long extinct, had begun to sprout between the cracks. The wind carried warmth again. The world, once gray and dead, was waking up. He turned back to her. "You did this?" "No," she said. "We did this." He reached out, trying to touch her hand, but his fingers passed through the light. He laughed weakly. "You always had to be mysterious, didn't you?" She smiled. "You always had to be stubborn." They both laughed. Soft, broken, but real. "John," she said gently, "there's one last thing I need you to do." "What is it?" "Live," she said simply. "Don't spend your life chasing ghosts. Build something new. The world needs someone like you now, someone who believes in kindness again." He swallowed hard. "And what about you?" Her form flickered, the light around her growing brighter. "I'll be here. In the wind. In the light. In every star that shines at night." He took a deep breath, memorizing every detail. The curve of her smile, the glow of her eyes, the sound of her voice. "I'll never forget you," he whispered. "I know," she said, "because love doesn't fade. It just changes shape." The wind rose again, and her light began to scatter like dust into the morning sky. "Goodbye, John," her voice echoed softly. He reached out one last time, but the light faded completely, leaving only the sunlight warming his face. John stood alone, tears on his cheeks, a faint smile on his lips. Around him, the world glowed with new life. Green vines, soft flowers, the sound of distant birds returning. Weeks later, John built a small home on the edge of the canyon. He grew food, fixed old machines, and planted a tree where the battle had ended. The tree grew fast, its leaves shimmering faint blue under the sun. He called it Lyra's tree. Every night he sat beneath it looking at the sky. The stars above always seemed to pulse softly, as if answering his heartbeat. And sometimes, when the wind passed through the leaves, he swore he could hear her voice again, gentle and warm. "You saved me, John." He would close his eyes and answer, "No, Lyra, you saved me." And somewhere far beyond the stars, her light would shimmer brighter, watching, protecting, loving. The war had ended. The world was healing. And though one was human, and the other had been born of another world, their hearts had found each other, not through fate or chance, but through the kind of love that survives even when everything else fades away. Under the twin suns, John smiled, whispering to the endless sky, "Sometimes the universe doesn't send heroes. It sends someone who needs saving, and ends up saving you instead."